Good morning and welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Licensing and Gambling Act Subcommittee on Friday, the 22nd of September 2023. I am Councillor James Henton and I will be chairing today's meeting. Just to make you aware, today's meeting will be recorded. Can you please ensure that your phones are switched to silent? Sorry, members, that was the fire alarm going off. I'm sorry. Can you please ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting? Would members, officers and attendees who are present in the committee rooms today please use their microphones when speaking? When not speaking, can I ask that you ensure your microphone is switched to mute? If you have any questions, please raise your hand or electronically if attending virtually. Agenda item 2, are there any declarations of interest? If yes, Sarah will forward you an electronic form for you to complete and return to her.
I see no indications, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Agenda item 3, urgent items. I have none. Agenda item 4, the report of the Head of Legal Services. Agenda item 4 is on pages 3 to 16 of the circulated report pack and is here for decision. I also bring members' attention to the additional item of the supplementary circulated pack. These can be found on pages 1 to 66. Hi, Councillor Carpenter. If you wish to remain, you can, but if you want to leave, you may do so now.
Thank you, Chair. I will remain as an observer. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Mr. Chappell, would you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Good morning, everybody. We're on agenda item 4. This is an application for a new premises licence for the Surge Cafe Bar, 74 Commercial Road in Port Talbot. The applicant is a Mr. Stephen Carl Lewis. Mr. Lewis is also named as the designated premises supervisor in this application. The application is to permit the sale of alcohol Monday to Sunday from 11 a.m. until 10:30 p.m, with the premises open between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. Members will note that there were 3 representations received in respect of this application, one from South Wales Police, one from Neath Port Talbot's Environmental Health Department, and one from Mr. and Mrs. Woolcock, who are residents who live in close proximity to the premises. The representations from South Wales Police requested additional conditions be attached to the licence. These conditions have been agreed by the applicants. The police are not present today. The representations from Environmental Health and the local residents remain unresolved, and members will shortly hear for submissions from these parties. Members will note that the representations are attached to the report appendixes 1, 2 and 3. But there is additional information, as alluded to by the Chair. The additional information is supplied by Environmental Health, and that is also attached to the report. Members are reminded today that only relevant information can be taken into consideration when determining an application for a premises licence. This application relates only to the sale of alcohol. There is no request in this application for entertainment in the form of live or recorded music. So members will need to be mindful when considering this application that submissions are relevant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chappell. Do we have any questions for Mr. Chappell in relation to the report only? Councillor Thomas, please.
Hi, thank you. So obviously, having read the papers, Environmental Health are objecting to this quite strenuously on the grounds of noise. Are you saying that has entirely has no bearing on today's decision?
So Environmental Health will make their submissions shortly. Members will have to take into consideration the application before them today is for the sale of alcohol only.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there is no. So we'll have to hear from Environmental Health and then determine what is relevant and what is not.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Neil. Are there any other questions? No. I will now ask the applicant, Mr. Lewis, for your submissions, please.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Lewis, and my application is for a license to sell alcohol in my Surge Cafe bar, and that I have no intentions of upsetting any neighbours at all, like it was done before. This is a new application for a new license. It's not an old license being refused to me. And that's all I got to say at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I will now ask the Environmental Health Officer to please submit their submissions.
Good morning, Chair, Council members. With regards to the application, I understand with regards to the comments made previously by Mr. Neal regarding the application being solely in relation to the provision of alcohol. Nonetheless, I feel the points are relevant to the licensing of the premises, and there is an inherent risk, given the history, which I will go over in relation to the premises, of detriment to nearby residents and nearby noise-sensitive properties. So in relation to that, the Environmental Health Department and Neath Talbot County Borough Council object to this application, reference LIP 22338, on the grounds of the prevention of public nuisance. The department does not take the decision to object to an application lightly. However, due to the turbulent history that followed every licence granted at this premises in the recent years, which we feel is a measure is proportionate to ensure the well-being of nearby residents. The Institute of Acoustics Good Practice Guide for the Control of Noise from Pubs and Clubs 2003 provides guidance for the assessment and control of noise affecting noise-sensitive properties. This guidance considers noise from a number of sources, including amplified music. I've summarised the document's relevant points in relation to the application below. Point 1 is the amplified and non-amplified music are a common source of noise disturbance arising from pubs and clubs. And for premises where entertainment takes place on a regular basis, music and associated sources should not be audible in size noise-sensitive properties at any time. Complaints in relation to this premises extend back as far as 2015. The premises licence holder at the time was a Mr. Christopher Trainer, and since this time, the premises licence holder has changed repeatedly. However, Mr. Christopher Trainer continues to have responsibilities for the building as he is the sole active director of the company, the Surge Pub Limited, which is named as landlord in the lease agreement. Just a point of note, the land registry at the time I reviewed this application was still held in the name of the Surge Pub Limited. Just in regards to it is still relevant that he is still the acting director for the company that owns the property. Several abatement notices have been served on various operators and premises license holders, including Mr. Trainer, in 2016, 2020, and more recently in June 2021. Full details are laid out within the previous review documents submitted. This effectively means that between 2016 and 2021, while the Surge was operating under a premises license, officers of this department continuously received complaints, investigated each complaint, witnessed statutory noise nuisance, and subsequently took enforcement action in relation to each premises license holder. Furthermore, there have been no complaints submitted following the 2021 license review during a period in which the premises operated without a license, with the exemption of complaints relating to drainage issues. We believe that this is sufficient to demonstrate that the premises is not suitable to facilitate amplified music without there being a high probability of statutory noise nuisance. Furthermore, there has been repeated disregard for the required sound attenuation and managerial controls necessary to facilitate amplified music at the premises. In most instances, this department would recommend license conditions sufficient to mitigate any inherent risk of nuisance arising from licensable activities. Following the 2021 license review for the premises in question, several conditions were added to the previous license, all of which were deemed necessary by the committee for mitigating adverse risks posed to local residents. However, the Live Music Act 2012 provides an exemption to conditions relating to regulated entertainment for licensed premises. This exemption effectively means that environmental health cannot enforce conditions necessary to provide protection to local residents, as no condition relating to regulated entertainment can be enforced through the premises license prior to 11 o'clock. As far as I'm aware, this exemption can only be removed via the licensing review process itself. We are now in a scenario whereby, through surrendering and applying for a new license, the premises can nullify the progress of the previous license review, and any conditions in relation to regulated entertainment can no longer be enforced prior to 11 p.m. I've attached a copy of the last license in force of the premises. Please note the conditions in Annex 3 with regards to noise impact assessment and noise management plans. In the interest of transparency, Environmental Health has contacted the applicant, Mr. Stephen Lewis, regarding their plans for the business. As of the 24th of August 2023, the applicant has not provided a noise management plan for the premises. Environmental Health has also not received a noise impact assessment as deemed necessary through the 2021 license review outlined in Annex 3 of the previous license. As of the 24th of August 2023, Stephen Lewis has not replied to our last email, dated the 15th of August 2023, which I have included. The applicant's response, or lack thereof, has not been sufficient to mitigate this department's concerns regarding the risk of public nuisance from the premises. In summary, the surge has a turbulent history demonstrating that every previous license holder since 2015 has repeatedly caused statutory noise nuisance. This department has deemed the premises itself unsuitable for amplified music and live entertainment, and no evidence to the contrary has been presented. Mr. Christopher Traynor, Director of the Surge Pub Limited, has maintained ultimate control of the premises throughout this period through enforcement of the lease agreement. Following the 2021 license review, significant restrictions were added to the previous premises license. These included the repeal of the Live Music Act exemption, the completion of a noise impact assessment by an Institute of Acoustics accredited professional, and further consultation with the local authority. The provisions within the license application form submitted and the email exchange with the applicant are not sufficient to offset the concerns surrounding noise nuisance. Therefore, this department must conclude that the surge is still unsuitable to operate under a premises license and will present a nuisance to nearby noise-sensitive properties. It's also worth me noting at this time one point I neglected to put in the statement with regards to the applicant has confirmed there will be not regulated entertainment, but there will be music on the premises during the course. It's not just simply regards to alcohol, though that is what's outlined in the application. That concludes my statement.
Thank you. I'll now go to interested persons against the application to make their submissions. So can I please have the local resident?
Hey there. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Couple of points that me and my wife have again had to bring up. Having received an email day before yesterday from your good selves to my wife, I would like to point out a few things. Mr. Nick Bailey notes in his email to the committee, the pub has quite a checkered history. Even he's admitting there that there's been problems in the past. Another note he makes, the terminal hours would not, I believe, impact negatively on the economy. My question to Mr. Bailey is there, what about the residents? Is the economy more important than the residents? That's my question there. There's conditions required by Mr. Bailey as well of an incident recording book on the premises. My question to Mr. Bailey is quite simple. Do you want the residents of Talbot and St. Albans Terrace to also keep a book? Because this is what it comes down to all the time. It's incident after incident after incident when his premises are given a licence, and we are the ones, the members of the public of St. Albans Terrace and the wider community of Talbot have got to put up with this. On a different note, I know there's already a steam train coming down to you lot from Scare Pub. That's a different subject. Mr. Bailey also says a proof of age of 25. Does Mr. Bailey and the committee realise how easy it is to get proof of age of 25 off the internet? It's quite simple. The youngsters speak about it daily. It's a common occurrence. 3 noise abatement orders have been served on this pub, 2016, 2020, 21, by various operators and the premises licence holder, Mr. Chris Traynor. How many more times are you going to allow this to happen? These people who take over this pub and Mr. Traynor are laughing at you. ever since abatement notices on the persons have been, ever since you put the abatement orders on people, they have just simply changed the name on the license and carried on regardless. 2016, 2020, 21. They're just taking the mic up. I'd like to refer you back to the report that was drawn up on October the 4th, 2021 by yourselves in the last meeting we had regarding this premises. It's on page 15. And I'd like to take to subsection C. There shall be no relegated entertainment in the form of live recorded music at the premises until such time that the license holder or the owner of the premises commissions an independent acoustic consultant undertake a noise impact assessment. This report was drawn up on the 4th of October 2021. It states in there that the owner must do it as well, not only the licensee. The owner of the building is still the same, Mr. Christina, and has done nothing regarding this report. No steps have been taken whatsoever, and he is still considering having music in his premises. Unbelievable. So to conclude, I would like to make a note on the impact that this premises has had, not only on myself, my wife, and the community. Lots of promises has been made by the previous license holders, exactly like Steve said there. I don't want any trouble. Trust me, it's coming down the line like a steam train. It always does. As soon as you put alcohol into the zone, it comes down the line. We already have 3 alcohol premises in Talbot, namely the Somerset Arms, the Bell, and the Rugby Club. Oh, I know the Bell and the Somerset Arms are already starting to kick a fuss up with residents around there. Talbot people have had a gutsful, an absolute gutsful of these licenses being issued, and we, the residents, have got to put up with antisocial behaviour constantly. People say, oh, we're going to make it run better. Once the people leave the premises, they have no legal right to them customers. None. It's us, the members of the public, the tax-paying people, that's got to put up with it, and we have had enough. And it's about time something was done, because Talbot can't take it anymore. It's constant, every weekend, drunken, loutish behaviour in Talbot. We've had enough, and we are the voting public, and we should be listened to. This licence should not be issued to this premises for another repeat of what we've already got here written down, which your own committee have said this has got to be done to these premises, and nothing has been done. And you recommended this, not me, you recommended it. And still nothing's been done about it. If you issue a licence to these premises again to allow this to happen, you're going against your own report, which I think is absolutely disgusting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. One thing I do want to just say at the end of that, the current committee isn't the same committee when it previously came before licensing, just to make that clear.
I would like just to point out that this report was made by the council, by the committee, and it states quite clearly that the owner should do it, and he has not done it.
I'm just referring as in members of the committee there. Right, we'll now move on to questions. I'll start with the legal regulatory manager. Neil, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll ask a few questions of the people who've just spoken, if I can. Starting with Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis, you're running the Surge Cafe Bar at the moment. How long have you been operating since?
I've been there nearly a year now, and I haven't sold no alcohol, and I've had no problems there at all. The problems that were there, like Mr. Wilcox said, it's been going on since 2016, I think it is, till 2021. I don't know nothing about that. I know there's been a problem there, but there's been you got the other 3 premise license holders there, and they are still doing it. And I don't like drugs. I don't want to know about drugs. I curb it as much as I possibly can. I cannot stop it, but I will curb it because I want them out. I don't want them in my pub. My pub has been decorated out. It's just relaxing. You can sit there, have a nice cup of coffee. You can take your children in there. It's not going to be a druggie's den, i.e. like the other pubs that are there.
Okay.
I don't intend on that.
So you've been operating for a year as a coffee shop, effectively.
Coffee bar, yes.
Coffee bar, right.
Restaurant, food.
have you had during the last year any entertainment at the premises at all?
Yes, I've had the radio going.
Okay.
And the TV.
Any live bands at all?
No, Christ, no.
No? Okay. If I can just go on to environmental health then. Thank you for your statement. You mentioned it was unsuitable for amplified music. The premise has been unsuitable for amplified music. Would you say that the premises is unsuitable for the sales of alcohol only?
I can't really make comment regards to the sale of alcohol because it doesn't come under my professional remit. Regards to amplified music, the statement is in relation to specifically what's outlined in the Acoustics Good Practice Guide for the Control of Noise from Pubs and Clubs. So it's things like proximity to the receptors, volume. This is why we felt it necessary in the 2021 review for a comprehensive noise impact assessment to be done. So these provisions could be put in place to determine if it was suitable in any capacity. But without that, we really don't have any idea whether or not there are suitable managing solutions or whether or not it's completely unsuitable.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, could I comment on that one? One bit that Alan perhaps didn't pick up on that relating directly to the sale of alcohol. There is an external area associated with this premises application. So I know it's been focused on the issues with entertainment previously, but I don't think we can oversee the fact that there is an external area as part of this license application. And for restrictions in the legislation, we typically take action on as with abatement notices. So that's an issue that needs to be considered amongst this as well. So not just entertainment, it is customer behaviour in an outdoor area as well.
If I can just stick to that point just for a second then. Obviously, this application is for the sales of alcohol only. Would there be some mitigating measures you'd like to see on the licence to prevent the noise nuisance associated with drinking in the outside area?
Quite honestly, it's probably going to come across our questioning of the applicant in terms of that, because as it stands, as Carl has pointed out, the response back from our previous questions of trying to find out what the intention of the premises is and what control measures they propose to implement, that wasn't forthcoming. So I think that will probably come out in some of our questioning.
Okay, thank you for that. And you may respond the same way to this. So the application, it's right, isn't it, that the application is for alcohol only. The premises, if it gets an alcohol license, which allows the sales on the premises, it'll be able to take advantage of the deregulation in the Live Music Act, which will allow live music and recorded music between the hours of 8 AM and 11 PM at night for less than 500 people. With that in mind, what would you suggest is the preferred outcome of today to negate those issues? Obviously, you can't attach conditions because they would be null and void during the deregulation period. So how would you propose that the mitigated measures are put in place other than refusal of the license in its entirety?
So the most beneficial outcome of today, as far as we could see, would be to mitigate the inherent risk that has been demonstrated with every license that has been granted to this premises, in perhaps reviewing or having the applicant resubmit at a time when the provisions in Annex 3 of the previous license that were added following the license review in 2021 as deemed necessary are actually considered. And so through that, we can know if there is an inherent risk to having any deregulated entertainment at this premises.
But of course, anything that they proposed in an operating schedule would have to be on a voluntary basis, because you couldn't put any conditions to that effect on a license where during the deregulation period.
So with regards to the granting of the license of committee, I'm aware that we have several abatement notices still in force. So obviously we have a duty to prevent the breach of those abatement notices in the same way we have a duty to advocate for the well-being of residents during the licensing committee process. So with regards to that, whether or not the conditions can be enforced through the license necessarily would be something we'd consider at that time, but it doesn't necessarily mean there aren't provisions that can be put in place in the property itself to make it more suitable. Sound attenuation, the positioning of speakers and the sound system in and of itself, things of this nature are in themselves things that can be mitigated through the licensing process, but without them necessarily being needed to be enforced through the license.
Okay, thanks. Is there an abatement notice served on Mr. Lewis?
No.
No. Okay. And can you just briefly, for members, if this premises was granted an alcohol only license and then they took advantage of the deregulation in the Live Music Act, what powers would Environmental Health have to deal with that outside of the Licensing Act?
So we have powers under the Nighttime Noise Act, which this application would hopefully not incur, as the hours are before 11 p.m., but also in relation to the Environmental Protection Act 1990. With regards to the Environmental Protection Act, we have the potential to serve statutory abatement notice where there is sufficient evidence of a statutory noise nuisance. We have the powers to conduct any works in default necessary, so the seizure of equipment or the undertaking of such actions as deemed necessary to prevent the nuisance from reoccurring. And we can also take prosecutions where a breach of an abatement notice is determined.
And do you feel that those powers would be able to deal quickly and effectively with a nuisance should one occur in the coming weeks?
Well, I can't, it's kind of a question of perspective. In the coming weeks, generally, like we have done for every complaint we received, we need to go out, we need to receive the complaints, we need to go out and collate the evidence, assess the evidence, serve notice. The notice has a minimum period generally prescribed for 3 weeks before it comes into force. Then we need to go out and assess a breach of notice. And then from that point, we need breach sufficient issue going for a warrant through the magistrate's court in order to act any seizures we may need to, and then to put together a case file for potential prosecution in order to try and bring about some outcome that can prevent the acts in the meantime. So it's kind of the issue with regards to the deregulation itself is the problem that generally occurs from it is the regulation tends to occur at the back end in a far lengthier process than with the restrictions actually going on at the start of the license. With regards to the Live Music Act, this generally is the problem we incur, is the fact that these extreme, I wouldn't say extreme, but the general enforcement under the Environmental Protection Act is an enforcement case. It is a criminal prosecution or a seizure of equipment that has to go through those checks and balances in and of itself. So it's a lot more difficult to maintain than, say, a breach of license condition.
And if you don't mind me jumping in on that one, so in a nutshell, the residents would have to be exposed to further disturbance and probably not from a short duration for us to gather the adequate evidence that we'd require to take action. And that's why we're here under the Licensing Act making a representation, because obviously the licensing objectives includes the prevention of public nuisance. And quite honestly, that's what we're trying to do here for the residents, is the prevention part of that objective.
Okay, thanks for that. Whether we agree or disagree with the Live Music Act provisions, it's right, isn't it, that it kind of ties our hands and committee's hands a little bit when we're trying to deal with an application such as this, because the options to members are quite limited today. The application is for alcohol only. They can obviously refuse the application. They can grant the application as applied, or they could restrict the operating hours in some way. That's really the only options they have available today, because they can't impose any conditions on the entertainment side of things. So to conclude with environmental health, and again, you may want to hear from the applicant during your questions before you answer this, but what is your outcome for today? If you're looking at those three options, refuse the licenses in its entirety, grant it as applied, or restrict the operating hours in some way with the alcohol, they are really your options that you have. So where would you see your preferred options lie in today?
So with regards to restriction of the operating hours, I can't see how they would necessarily operate given the proposed change in the hours from this application to how they currently operate, how that would be practicable with regards to operating a bar/cafe. So that would be one option, but we'd be potentially open to that with regards to much earlier in the day with the provision of alcohol. I'd be talking, much earlier. You're talking alcohol sales in the afternoon rather than anything into the evening, because people generally go out to drink and listen to music later on in the day. Specific to that, our preferred outcome would be the refusal of the application, so that if there is provision with regards to an application for this premises, the conditions in Annex 3 of the previous license that were put in place through the license review process could be implemented, and the risks to local residents from music arising from this venue could be adequately assessed prior to the granting of the license itself.
Okay. Just for members' information, obviously, if this application today was refused, then under the Live Music Act, as a workplace, the premises could still benefit from having live music at the premises without the need for a license at all. So just make you aware of that the premises can operate now with live music. They're not applying for any entertainment. They're only applying for alcohol. But I think that's important to take away with you as well. I'd be interested to hear the questions between environmental health and the applicant. If I can just turn my attention just briefly to Mr. Wilcock. I appreciate that there's been ongoing issues that you've had with this particular premises in the past. You've not had any issues since the cafe bar's been operating without?
No, none whatsoever. They've been one of the better neighbours, I might say. Steve unfortunately did have a problem with the drain, but that problem with the drain wasn't Steve's fault. It has always been there, and it was brought up to him and he sorted it out. I got no problems with that at all, none. They have been good neighbours, to be honest with you. But as soon as you put alcohol into the situation, it becomes a devil. The only thing I'd like to pick up on is, if I've listened to this properly, if the license is granted, they can still have live music there. Is that correct?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so do you want me to explain that more, or you've got that? Yeah.
The issue of live music in our premises still remains from the last abatement order. The building is not fit for purpose. It's in the last report that I was a semi-professional musician. I still play the drums. I got 2 drum kits in the house, and I take great measures, and people can't hear me, i.e. I bought a electric drum kit. Nobody can hear me. I played them when the cafe been open, nobody's heard me. Because it all comes because I make provisions not to make the noise. But that building, the old surgery pub, is not fit for purpose. It is very, very difficult in a live band situation or singer to control the music in a building that isn't fit for purpose. And the old surgery pub is not fit for purpose for live music. It's as simple as that. And I'm telling you what, as a semi-professional ex-musician, it can't be done.
You heard my submissions about the deregulation, about the live music and recorded music.
Yeah, they can just carry
however.
on as normal.
And yeah, so the legislation as it currently stands is the premises without a license can have a live band. They could have had it since they've been operating a
Yeah,
year ago.
yeah.
Okay. The application today is for
Alcohol only.
The benefit of having an alcohol license will allow them to have recorded music as well as live music as part
And
of
all
the
that was taken out
regulation.
last time because it was so loud.
Yeah. Obviously, this is a new application.
Yeah.
So everything that's now gone before has to be put aside, whether we agree with that or not.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
Put it on the
that's
record. I
fine.
don't, because it's
However-
just an ongoing problem.
However, that is the legislation. As
Yeah,
it
and it's
currently
ridiculous.
stands. And we have to operate within the confines
that's-
of that
that's fine.
legislation. So if I can ask a similar question to which I asked Environmental Health to yourself, the application is for alcohol only. The options are limited in what we can do. What would your preferred option be? To have no alcohol at all at the premises and have this application refused in its entirety?
Totally
or
refused.
restricted
Don't go
in
any further. Totally refused.
Totally
Pointless.
refused. Okay.
Due to the fact that we, the residents, like I've already stated, have got to put up with these people when they leave these premises. It's already noted in the past that I've had people urinate all over my wall. I've had my front door put through. I've had to turn my house into basically a secure unit with the video cameras everywhere. And you just keep allowing this to happen because of legislation. The human factor has been taken out of it. The human side has been taken out of it. There is no humanity in the decision at all. People need to look at themselves and think, hang on a minute, this has been ongoing for a long time. Forget it. Because the humanity has been taken out of all decisions. And I think that is totally and utterly wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcock. Chair, if I can finish there, perhaps if there are questions, I'm sure there'll be questions of me from members anyway. Perhaps I could have an opportunity later on if need be.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll now move on to the applicant, please, if you have any questions for anyone.
Well, going back to Mr. Wilcock, like you said, I could have had live music there for the last year and I could have blasted the place out like it has been in the past with Christopher Trainer. I am not Christopher Trainer. I'm a 66-year-old man. I don't intend being there till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm up at 7 in the morning, ready to cook breakfast. So you can imagine I'm not going to get drunk and sell drugs across the bar, which has been known to be done in the past, which I don't like. I don't like it at all. I don't want to upset the neighbours. I will not be playing loud music. I will position the speakers so that it's at the other end of the bar, not right next to his windows, which is, it's not fair on him. The way that the bands, Christopher Trainer put the bands right next to the wall, which is adjacent to his house. And that's not fair on him or his wife. I can imagine a house would be bouncing. Now, I'm not that type of person. I never have been. And you know that, David.
Can I just answer that? Like I said, an ex-semi-pro, if you face the speakers towards my house, it's exactly the same method as putting them by my window because the noise travels that way. Like I said earlier, the building is not fit for purpose. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be regulated volume-wise because the building, at the end of the day, was a doctor's surgery, not a pub, not a music venue. It cannot be regulated, Steve. It's impossible. I know more about speakers than most people here, and I'm telling you now, it cannot be regulated.
I'd like to make it clear that, first of all, which public house is equipped for playing live music. But besides that, you don't need to point the speakers directly at his house or the back of it to his house, right? There's other ways of putting it round. The bar is quite large. There's room there for everything. I don't intend playing live music after 9 o'clock. I want to I want to put food on the tables there until about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I don't want drunks there. So I will be watching. I have got the challenge 25 and I'm very strict with that. So, David, I really am going to try my best not to upset you in any shape or form.
Not
And
to
at the
be,
end of the day, David, you've got to realise that your wife built the bar, they built the house right next to a bar, which she actually owned at the time. So I can't do nothing about that. That's all I can do is perhaps put another wall between the windows that are facing your house.
and the answer to that, Steve, what you got to remember is you rented a property next door to a house.
Yeah.
That's what you got to remember. And Mr. Chris Trainer bought a property next door to a house. But my wife was there first. So that's my answer to that question, because it seems to be a thing around. I've been asked by one of the members of the council in the past, and I'm told that's what you get for buying a pub next to a house. House next to a pub. I said, no, we lived here first.
It's been,
So
it has been a public house.
So
for a long, long
everything,
time.
everything you just said there about you don't have drugs, you don't get me open late, I love blasting music. Trust me, Steve, I've heard it all before, mate. It's not the first time I've heard it, and it won't be the last.
But in all honesty, David, that pub has been there, a pub before the house was built. A long time by Daryl's parents, first of all.
Correct, yeah.
And before the house was built, the house was built on the premises where there was a garage.
Correct. I told you that myself.
Yeah, that's right. So the pub was there before built the house. Why build a house next to a pub?
Because at the time, my wife and her ex-husband owned the whole property. That's why it was built there.
They made that decision between.
Yeah, they made that decision, and the biggest mistake of their lives, I can tell you.
I bet it is, but you can't blame me for that, though, can you?
No, I'm not blaming you at all for it. I'm not blaming you at all for it.
Sorry, both. Can we keep it a bit more on topic with the current application?
I do agree. I want to put alcohol in there because I got meals in there. I want to save bottles of wine. I want to have music in there where I can have like a guy playing the guitar and singing music, you know, nothing like I don't want the Talbot triangle bring back that. I don't want that. I'm not that type of person. I never have been, never will be. And Christopher Trainer is not one bit like me. He's a youngster and he tries to make a fast buck out of everybody. Have you agreement with that, Anna? I don't want that. I'm there for a long term. I have every intentions of buying the property. And then he has nothing at all to do with the place then, at all. That's the problem I got. At the moment, I'm renting the property and I've been for the last year. I've turned it into a tidy cafe. It's got a good reputation. And of course, my wife's cafe then down in Kenfig Industrial Estate, that's got a damn good reputation as well. We've been there over 5 years. I don't play loud music in the pub. The radio goes on, you know, Alexa, Chris, or the TV will go on. And that is it. Nothing more. And I've done that for the last year. But what happened before I went in there, I can't be held responsible for. I know mud sticks. A mud sticks well and hard, but I am not that type of person. So all I want to do is employ people in the local area to work the bar. I want to be home in the house. I don't want to be there till 10 o'clock at night cleaning up. I want to employ people. And that's my out and out goal. I got a young boy came in there to serve behind the bar, the food, and he's 15-year-old from school. And I tell you what a nice young man. I'm landed with him. He can only work on a Saturday at the moment because he got school on Monday. But I love him to bits because he's a real gentleman. I'm giving him a head start in life. He's been adopted or he's fostered, I think. But to give him a job like that gives him some sort of incentive in life to work. And a lot of people nowadays haven't got that incentive. So that is my goal in life, to be honest with you. I've told everyone this, every councillor that's come in there. I just want to make a business run. I don't care about the money. I just want to get wages going out for people who's working there. That's my goal. I don't want to be loud. I don't want to upset any neighbours. I don't want to cause any trouble.
Do you have any questions at all anymore?
No, not really. No.
All right, thank you. It's just trying to keep things on track. That's all. Oh, sorry. In that case, I'll now move on to the environmental health officer, please.
Good afternoon. I have a question for the applicant, Stephen Lewis. You reference speakers facing away from the property. I'm assuming you mean a PA system for bands to plug into? Or do you mean fixed mounted speakers on the wall, part of some kind of jukebox?
I don't think live bands will have anything to do with it, to be honest with you. I don't intend having, like I said, loud music there. If there's a guy playing a guitar or a piano or even a bit of karaoke or whatever, they'll be all, nothing will be going outside. It'll be all conserved in the building. And I'm hoping to try and put some sort of soundproofing against the window, which is facing David's and Valerie's house next door. I'm trying my best to keep everybody happy.
You reference, like, it sounds like to me, in my experience, you are describing putting in a PA system for bands to plug into, whether or not they be a single person with an acoustic guitar plugging into it, whether or not it's a singer doing karaoke. These things generally happen with a standard PA system, which would be the same as what was in previously when the previous 6 abatement notices were served. The orientation of the PA system itself and the internal speakers to the building were subject to the reasoning behind the conditions in Annex 3 of the previous license. So just to confirm, there has been no consultation with an industry of acoustics specialist with regards to how this would be orientated, not to have the sound leave the premises.
Well, first of all, I didn't know anything about that. Okay, Mr. Trainer you'd have to deal with that. Secondly, I have no intentions of having them big, huge speakers in my pub because I want people there eating food and there'll be children in there up to a certain time. I'm honest to God, I'm not intending putting out all them big speakers. I've worked with bands in the past, back in the 70s, but I don't intend having that. I got 2 earplugs. I don't want that. I got 2 ear.
Background music and a drink. It's a restaurant. It's not the bell. It's not the stair.
I take the point. In regards to it, I'm just inquiring with regards to the nature of how the sound is going to be created. So just to give reference, so the previous issues with the premises were with regards to systems the band's plugged into, the equipment they brought with them in terms of drum kits, their own amplifiers, and then the overall jukebox system. Now, some element of this generally is present in a cafe or bar of any sort if you're going to have background music. So I assume there's going to be one or multiple of those instances within your premises. Do you have any scope of what type of equipment is going to be used? You say background music, that could be anything from a small radio to
Well, for the past year, we've had Alexa on a television, and have you heard anything from us, Dave?
No, not regarding Alexa, but then again, you won't use my drum kit either, do you? Steve, just like to pick up on what you said about having karaoke and a singer with a guitar. They all come with PAs. They all come with PA systems, big speakers. I used to be one myself. I know.
Well, yeah, they probably will bring their own amplifying equipment, but doesn't mean it's going to be as loud as it was when Chris Trainer was there. Right?
The thing is, we do realise. Sorry? Yeah? We do realise and sympathise with you
Yes.
against it.
Sorry, Mr. Wilcock. If we can just keep it with environmental health for now. You will have an opportunity to potentially come back in once we've gone through everyone.
Specific to a comment you raised earlier, you said there has been word of previous dealings at the premises with regards to drugs being sold over the counter. Can you outline what you're regarding, in what period, regard to what operator?
Well, it was before I went there, and at least a year before that, I know for a fact, because there was somebody else in there before me, and they were doing the embroidery equipment. But honestly, that's all I can do is tell you what the neighbours are telling me. And the customers come in and say, look, you've turned this place upside down. It's completely different. I don't intend.
I actually contacted the council about the previous licence. I can't remember who I spoke to, but she did say that it had an absolutely stinking reputation. We could have transferred that licence to ourselves, but there was too many restrictions on it. And a lot of things that were on that licence we don't want anyway, which is why I've emphasised it's basically, I don't know if you know the Rolling Mill in Carmarthen, you go there for a meal and a drink and you're home. Anything outside the premises, yes, there's tables outside, but we're not talking live bands falling about in the car park outside. And if that did happen, we've installed cameras at the premises and obviously would work with the neighbours if they did have any trouble to sort things out properly. Therefore, whoever was responsible then wouldn't be allowed back onto the premises.
Thank you for answering my questions. I believe my colleague Gareth wants to.
Yeah, few questions just to clarify things in my own mind, and maybe I've lost a bit track on it. I'm a bit unclear of the business model, so maybe while we're all here, if you can just set out, because there's a bit of conflicting things there. Because I understand you're saying about meals and maybe a guitarist, the acoustic set in the back, but then you throw in things like karaoke, which, into my mind, doesn't fit in with a meal and a drink type of scenario. So maybe can we just take a few minutes for an explanation of what you got in your mind, how you want to proceed with the business?
Well, it's just like we had a meal up. Sorry, just so that we had a meal up in the Rolling Mill the other night, didn't we? And it was a lovely meal and there's a lovely drink, and they brought on a karaoke system, which is just in the room itself. It wasn't loud. It was just people singing in the room, and they had a great time. And that's what I want. I want to give them a little bit of entertainment, bring back the old style music, and not be blast. I have no intentions. If you don't want me to have karaoke, I won't have it. I don't mind.
Well, straight answer is, yeah, I don't want you to have karaoke there. That's
Okay,
what-
it's fair.
what I've just
That is fair enough. I understand that.
Because what we're trying to come from, and I know this isn't the question, but hopefully the statement will help. Doesn't appear to me that for one reason or another, you haven't actually risk assessed the activities you want at the property at this stage.
We didn't, because we're more concentrated on the food and have been for the last year.
Yeah.
So now we want to introduce alcohol for people to have a drink with their meal. And that's basically it.
And it's the second part of it with these little bits of karaoke and things like that that concern us mainly.
But we're not going to blast out singers when people are eating food.
So then you're not going to be serving.
So we got background music then while people are eating. For maybe the last hour, we're planning on closing 10:30. No more alcohol.
So the business model is food business with a drink.
Yep.
Then you're going to have a period of a place for entertainment.
Maybe for an hour or two. That's it.
That's maximum.
What are you going to do about the building?
Well, I fancy.
As regards what?
That's what concerns me, is the fact that we've already highlighted the property isn't suitable for containing noise. But yet it doesn't seem to be a proposal, whether or not it's after having food or short periods. It doesn't seem to be any indication that the envelope of the building is going to be constructed or improved in any sort of way.
I do get you've asked for a noise, a risk assessment, isn't it? Previously, because you've had music pumping out of there in the past with live bands and people.
I think the point I'm getting, the property is possibly in such a condition that it contains such little noise that even the quieter end of entertainment would still potentially cause a problem.
But we've had the quiet end of entertainment for the last year and it's been no problem.
Right, but you know, you're escalating to having karaoke and things there. And I'm just wondering, you're escalating it from having an Alexa playing to having a sound system for karaoke, yet nothing's been done to improve the building to meet up with the increase of that type of entertainment. Do you see what I mean? You're automatically increasing the risk, but not that.
Because we're more focused on alcohol with people having a drink with their meal at the moment.
Yeah, but
The entertainment will come maybe another year or 2 years down the line.
what do you propose to do to the building in that terms then?
Like I said, I want to buy the building off Mr.
We put steps in place and obviously not to upset any further. We're trying to do it. We've waited a year before we've gone for the alcohol licence, purely to concentrate on the food to see if it's going to work, to build a business up.
Be honest,
We haven't gone straight in and said, look, we want this as a pub.
No,
We've done well without the alcohol, I'll be honest with you.
yeah, and
But we need to do that a little better as the rent's gone up
Yeah,
and everything's gone up.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I don't think it's down to you guys. And again, sorry, it's a statement. This isn't about you as people, because I think, quite honest, you come across with all good intentions. Unfortunately for you, I think you're in a building, as it stands, does not allow you to take that extra step forward, increase that entertainment side of it. That's nothing to do with you guys. And I think you've got good intentions, but I think anything above that background music on an Alexa in the background, I think you're in realm of having us coming down on you, reviewing the license again. And that's something that I'm trying to help you out a little bit here.
Yeah.
Because I think the building's at fault, not you.
Okay.
And this is why we've objected to it, is because whether or not legally or which route it goes down, that entertainment part of things needs to be restricted in that building as it's.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We'd obviously take steps then to work together.
So and on that point, so you don't own the building at the moment.
No.
Have you got any right to do any structural changes at the building? Or is that down to Mr. Trainer?
It's down to Chris Trainer.
So with all good intentions, if you wanted to do the wall in the back,
Which I intend doing.
He'd let us do anything if we paid for it.
As long as you don't have to pay for it, it's okay.
it's just, the reason I'm saying this is that because I've dealt with Mr. Trainer in the past, and that was one of the solutions that was put forward before. Never happened.
If I could just come in regards to it. Just real quick regards to, I think it would be unfair to say that every single operator in the past had malign intentions. We reference Christopher Trainer as he's the sole director and he's the original complaint we dealt with. But of the operators we dealt with, there were at least periods where they had every intention of restricting the entertainment within the premises as not to cause a problem to the neighbours. They generally always ended up causing a problem to the neighbours, and that's how we got to the point where 6 abatement notices had been served over the period.
Okay, yes, but we are not those people, and we can't, we made sticks, but I don't think we should be held accountable for the past on the pub.
I think that's the point we're making, is that
Yeah.
those individuals may be carbon copies of you guys, but because the building...
It may well be, but I think we should have more than proved ourselves after a year.
And we'll agree to disagree.
Because we could have upset a lot of people, couldn't we, in that year with music, and we haven't, because that's not what it's about.
But is that because you haven't had the music?
No, but we could have, couldn't we? We could have played loud music, and there's been no complaints, as he said.
We don't want
But
to
there's
play
no
loud
complaints.
music.
We don't want to play loud music. Why do you want loud music playing when
moment.
you're eating your food?
Why would you want karaoke?
Well, we're talking like an hour or so in the night after, sort of between 8 and 10 when the food has stopped.
Yeah, so I won't...
It's 10:30, we close in.
Yeah, we'll move on from that, because I think the point's been made that it's not just food operated, you have other intentions. Perhaps maybe moving off that, because I think we've dealt with the fact that we think the structure is not suitable for anything other than probably serving food, breakfasts and things like that. What's your intention of the outdoor area in terms of controlling that from, so forget the entertainment, you said no entertainment outside at all. In terms of behaviour wise.
You're just talking seasonal outside, really, isn't it? Because if people want the food and they eat it outside, umbrellas in the summer, that's where they're going to go. It's not going to be, like Steve said before, like the tie-back triangle where everybody gathered there before they went to the bell and whatever, isn't it? I won't have that anyway.
So maybe I'll be a bit more to the point on it, rather than leaving this open. Are you intending to close the outside area at a specific time to minimise the chances of disturbance from customer behaviour outside?
10 o'clock.
And will part of that control, will that be bringing in all seating out of the way? Or
You can't, there's 3, they fix benches, yeah.
I noticed people have been using it because I found a mess and I've been cleaning it up as well.
Okay, I think I've probably pressed and gone over the same points over and over, but I think that's all I wanted to bottom out, really. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that's all from us. Regards to, thank you for your answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. I'll now move on to Mr. Wilcock. If you've got any questions, please.
It's just everything I've heard in the past, nothing. And Steve and your wife, I don't know your wife's name, Blair. I have nothing at all against you two. Nothing whatsoever, right? Unfortunately, I used to work with Steve in the steelworks, and that was bad enough. No, he's got a business next door to me now. Unfortunately, the two of you, you've inherited a problem, a big problem. I told Steve the day he said he was having it, you're going to regret this. And I think it's coming home to roost. I don't blame you two at all. Unfortunately, the building you were in is not fit for purpose. No, you haven't been any trouble to us so far. In fact, you've been sound. And I'm quite happy to say that. But you have inherited a problem, and it's a problem, like you said, mud sticks, and it sticks badly. And to that place there, the old surgery, since Christopher Trainer took it over, it has stuck really bad. I agree with the drugs do. I know they found it.
Sink or swim.
Huh?
We've got to sink or swim.
Sorry, Mr. Wilcock. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, outside, you said you're going to use a seating outside. We had a problem when they used it in the past with rubbish. Flag ends. It was. I think I got in touch with environmental health regarding the rubbish. How are we going to deal with that situation? Are we going to put bins outside for them to use?
I got OCD.
You have them. Well, trust me, the public haven't.
I have though. It'll be every morning a clean up.
Every morning.
What about the evening after they left then? What about in the evening when they stop eating and go? Who's going to clean up then?
We'll do that because that's what we do.
You just said you're going to clean up in the morning.
Evening and night, and if there's any rubbish outside, first thing you do is pick it up.
I hope so.
Plastic glasses.
I hope so.
Containers out there now, and it's not from.
No, I agree with you, Steve. Yeah.
You can always put
it's a tip.
in the car park anyway.
I can't stop the public from using them chairs and tables, and it's just young kids go in there. They use the car park. Oh, sorry. The car park is there, and there's a lot of people using that car park, i.e., the dentist, the local lollipop man. Now he uses it as well, plus our customers. and then there's chairs now put outside in the plinth area there, and people have been using it now in the nights, park their car up, and they go and eat their food. But there, I'm there in the morning and picking up the rubbish. You know what I mean? I close at 4 o'clock at the moment.
Not our rubbish, it's somebody else's that they bring along.
Yeah, and I do clean it up, and I keep in the car park clean. I'm trying to keep the area clean between myself and David's building there. I try and keep that clean best I can. Like you said, I've inherited a right dump, but I'm doing my best to improve it. You go inside, it's different completely. That back wall where David is, I'm gonna have to do some sort of soundproofing there, to be honest with you, because it's not fair to him and his wife. I wouldn't like to live there. Well, I wouldn't have built the place there anyway in the first place. But that's a different story altogether. That was done a long time ago, and it's also been a pub for many, many years. Nothing I can do about that.
It's a pub with the same problem, so.
Do you have any more questions at all?
No, I think I've said all I can say is just repeat constantly. I'll be back again next year. If they get a license, I'll be back again next year. So hope you're all here. See you next year. Because that's what's going to happen if this license gets granted.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcock. I'll now move on to subcommittee members for questions, please. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. I'm afraid I've got quite a lot of questions. So I suppose, first of all, Mr. Wilcock, can I just focus in on say, the last 6 months since Mr. Lewis has been in there? Have you had any issues since Mr. Lewis took over management of the site?
No, as I stated earlier, I've had no trouble whatsoever, other than the drain situation, which Stephen sorted out immediately. No trouble whatsoever, perfect neighbours.
Obviously, as regards to the drain, which he did sort out, but nonetheless, that wouldn't have any effect by this license. So no. I suppose my next question is, do you understand that whether we issue this license or not, Mr. Lewis can play music and do karaoke? This license won't prevent him being able to do that.
Yes, I totally understand that. And like I said earlier on, when these decisions are made, the human factor is taken out of everything. None of the community or the street is taken into consideration.
Right, but I mean, we are taking that into consideration at the moment because that's what this meeting's all about. We're here to hear your views and Mr. Lewis's views, and then make a decision. But we don't have the ability anymore to control the the music side of things. But I'm going to come to Mr. Lewis next, because I just think this is the easiest order. So just so I'm clear in what it is you're intending to do you intend to allow people to have sort of a beer or a wine with their food, and then maybe if you do have like something going on in the evening, for them to stay and have a few drinks before going home? Or do you intend to allow people to come in just to drink like you would at a pub?
The first one you said there about having a meal, that's my intentions. Give them a little bit of entertainment afterwards so they enjoy the meal better, and then they leave. And if they want to get drunk, they can go uptown and get drunk. I'm not interested.
So
if you understand what I mean.
Some time ago, like, just anecdotal thing, I went somewhere for a meal. It was my birthday at the time, and afterwards they had entertainment, but it was only for like an hour after everyone had finished eating. People went there, they sat, they ate, they talked, and then there was like I think it was a comedy show as it goes. There was a comedy person on stage for an hour, and then they closed. And if people wanted to drink after that, they went to a pub. Am I right? That is your intention? Like that would be the most extreme thing that you are looking to do?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So and the other thing, I had a look on Google Maps. Can I just confirm, because it wasn't 100% clear, is the building entirely detached?
Yes.
Thank you. Right. So, right. My next question is really for environmental health. So, I've got to admit, I'm a little bit confused, because it seems everything in the report is about music, and I suppose my first question is, what exactly qualifies as amplified music? For example, would a jukebox qualify?
Yes, it's generally there's some back and forth about what qualifies amplified. This is an issue we deal with sometimes with regards to it, but generally anything that comes through an amplifier is probably quite a good definition. So anything that goes through a speaker system, anything that goes through a PA system, generally anything of that nature. That's generally where the industry falls with regards to it. You can make an argument that I won't get into it now because it get too needlessly complicated, but anything going through a speaker generally.
Okay, so if they had like somebody in singing and with an acoustic guitar, no microphone, that wouldn't count.
And no, that wouldn't count.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, so there was 7 conditions for the previous applicant, and not for this person. So condition 7 was about installing like ashtrays and stuff outside. Has that been done? I have no idea who can answer that, but I assume it has.
No, it hasn't.
It hasn't. So you don't have ashtrays in the smoking area.
No, there's none there.
Okay, and Mr. Lewis agrees to that.
Probably worth. I wasn't the one answering that. I don't know. That wasn't part of our remit with regards to it, I don't think.
Right. Okay. So they're obviously on the abatement notices that you included as part of this sort of supplement. There are redacted names. Those names don't have anything to do with the applicant today, do they?
Only Christopher Trainer as the person who maintains ultimate control of the building through the lease agreement.
Right. So for the sake of clarity, he owns the building. But I mean, if hypothetically we were to issue this license to Mr. Lewis, and then for some reason Mr. Lewis ceased to be like in control of the building, he ceased to be the tenant, Mr. Trainer wouldn't then be able to use that license, would he? It belongs to Mr. Lewis, not Mr. Trainer.
I would agree, yes, it belongs to Mr. Lewis, but I would have to point out that Mr. Trainer, at the time of the initial enforcement on Mr. Trainer himself, brought in a different DPS and got the license into their name. Mr. Christopher Trainer was involved with the premises throughout the entire history of our enforcement on the building, regardless of who actually held the license at any one time over the course of between 2016 and 2021.
Right. And when, out of curiosity, when did Mr. Lewis take on tenancy?
Probably best answered by the other
11
Mr.
months
Lewis.
now, so yeah,
11
so you're in
months.
October.
Brilliant. So well after the last like time you were involved as environmental health then?
Yeah, I believe our last involvement with regards to the amplified music was upon the surrender of the license following the license review in 2021.
Okay. Right. So last question, I think, and I think maybe Neil might need to advise on this one. So what I'm wondering is, given there's been such a long history of issues with this, however, this particular applicant doesn't seem to have caused any issues. Indeed, even people that are very concerned about the situation admit that he's been quite amicable and worked with the residents there. So what I'm wondering is there a way of like meeting in the middle? Because we do, for example, a 6-month license where we review it at 3 months and review it at 6 months before deciding whether to extend. Is that something that's possible to do? Or do we have to basically grant it, reject it, or set limitations?
Yeah, essentially, no, you can't do that. There are provisions within the Licensing Act to review a license anyway. So once the license is granted, then that license will last indefinitely unless it's revoked, lapses, or surrendered. So putting a review period in and extended is not an option within the terms of the Licensing Act. However, there are review procedures already in place within the Licensing Act.
What about doing like a 6-month trial license that expires in 6 months, and then we come back to this in 6 months so that we can see how it's gone?
So if you were to grant a license for 6 months, at the end of that 6 months, that license would lapse.
Yeah.
Yep. There would be no provisions to extend that license at that point.
No.
They would have to apply for a brand new license and go through the whole process again.
Yes, but obviously when the committee meets to decide that at that point, they would have the benefit of this.
Yeah, potentially. However, the way the Licensing Act works is if you grant the license, there's always an opportunity to bring it back to review. You don't have to wait 6 months. The premises could cause a nuisance next week, and a review could come in the following day. And within 2 months, we're back in this situation. You can review the license then. So putting an arbitrary time scale on it would tend to, I think, to defeat the whole purpose of the Licensing Act.
Okay, bear with me, because as I'm sure you know, this is the first time I've done one of these license subcommittees. So my final question is just, I think you've already answered that. I just want it to be clear for everyone present, really. We can't physically add the previous 7 conditions to this license because they relate to music, and this license isn't about music. Is that correct?
Yeah, so effectively you can add any conditions you want to add to this license. You can. Obviously, any decision you take today can be challenged by any of the interested parties here today. The question for members is whether you are attaching conditions that are relevant to the application. Now, if you attach the conditions that were attached to the previous license, and there was no challenge to those, they'd sit on the license. However, none of those conditions would have effect during the deregulation period. So the fact that they're there would be irrelevant. They would not apply anyway until a review came in, and then they were reimposed. That's the only way you can get those conditions to be effective on a new license.
Am I okay just to make one comment, if that's all right? It's just the review process. While theoretically we could go to review upon the first instance, we as a department, one of the consultees to licensing applications would be the one that brings the review, or the licensing department themselves. We would need to demonstrate through sufficient evidence to actually bring to committee that breach has taken place and is sufficient for whatever, to evidence the requirement for whatever conditions we need through the review process. So like last time, we had sufficient evidence through multiple years from 2020 to 2021, and over 3 years. We generally don't include it through the application process, but that was a long time residents had to suffer through the issues with the pub before we were able to collate enough evidence to demonstrate sufficiently to the committee that the issues were present and needed to be addressed through additional conditions, which included the repeal of the Live Music Act.
I would imagine, though, given that you've brought all of that evidence to this committee meeting, that should there be a complaint and it come to be reviewed, that evidence would be able to be brought to bear. It's not like you'd have to start from scratch, I assume. Neil?
I was going to make exactly the same point. I think, I mean, that evidence is still there. And should the premises be disruptive immediately upon any grant of the license, then surely the history of it becomes relevant. I agree with that.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all of my questions now. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Whitelock, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's to Mr. Lewis, the applicant it is. You said that Mr. Traynor still owns the building. Can you give this committee guarantees that he will have nothing to do with the running of this premises? Because
Nothing whatsoever.
in the past, it's always reverted back to Mr. Traynor's way of running things as soon as there's a license issued. And I'd just like guarantees that he will, you know, I can't put the words there, but he'll have nothing to do with the running of the building.
You want to answer that?
Can I just say that I think I'm maybe one of the very first people that stood up to Mr. Traynor, and he's not allowed into the pub.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Whitelock. It'll just be a question from me now to the applicant. In regards to the sales of alcohol and food, you were saying food would finish by about 8 p.m. and then you're looking to have people potentially leave around 10 p.m. to close up.
Yeah, 8:30 for the finish of food.
Right. So would, if we were to grant a license today, but we put in a change of the times for when you could sell alcohol, would you be open-minded to alcohol sales being stopped before 10 p.m?
Yeah, open to anything, as long as all we're aiming for is for people to enjoy a drink with their food, because the amount of people that have come in and said, oh, we'd love a glass of wine now, or glass of lager, or whatever, that's our aim. Anything else is a bonus.
Thank you. And then I'll ask, going off that, Mr. Woolcock, would residents be open somewhat? I know obviously you want the application to be refused, but if there was a restriction that alcohol sales stop before 10 p.m, would that be something somewhat acceptable for residents?
No.
I'll now move on to our legal advisor, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Good morning, everyone. I wonder whether I might start perhaps by asking some questions of the applicant, Mr. Lewis, and Mrs. Lewis, if you wish to assist, of course, by all means do so. Then I'll come to Mr. Woolcock, if I may, and then I'll come to environmental health. Forgive me if I've misunderstood anything in respect of your business plan, but if you take a step back, perhaps you might explain to the committee and those people listening to today's presentation, what exactly do you intend to do with this business if you were successful in getting the license?
Like I said, my wife said exactly the same thing. We want to serve food.
Right.
People want us open, and they also want to drink. Not late, because I'm up in the morning, so I'm not going to be there late. Like I said, my wife said we'll willingly stop serving food and alcohol at 10 o'clock. There's no problem there. I don't want to serve food at 10 o'clock anyway, to be honest with you. It's 9 o'clock is max.
Food will be stopped between 8 and 8:30. Anything after that for us concerning alcohol is a bonus.
Okay. And you heard, didn't you, from Mr. From Gareth Liley, asking you about the karaoke side. So this perhaps is your opportunity to clarify exactly what did you have in mind in that respect and in respect of the playing of music at the premises.
It was so it's just to do with me, it is really. I'd like sort of when they're having their food, quiet music in the background. After their food is finished, they can have a little bit of entertainment. The customers I'm talking about, or anybody else that's in there. And I don't want it played loud. No way on this earth.
But we're not talking about this like every night or every week. This may be a once a month or a once a fortnight type thing. This is not going to be happening every night.
And
because obviously you've got the cost of things. We need to sort of put the feelers out first if we were granted the alcohol licence of how it's doing with the alcohol and the food. And is it worth putting on a singer or, you know, putting somebody in there to do karaoke because it's all extra expense. And then we'd be looking at maybe in the summertime, if the tables were being used outside as well for alcohol use, obviously putting somebody on the door to man that area of the building as well.
We've got CCTV cameras looking at the areas, including looking at the bell. The police have been there quite a few times to use the CCTV cameras for their own use. And that, how can I explain it to you? We're using amplified equipment right now. You know what I mean? What do you class as amplified equipment?
We do not want live bands in the building. We're not live band people. And people don't want that when they're eating food and having a quiet drink. They want to come somewhere to relax, have a little bit of background music, and that's it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. So in that case, then you would be intending serving meals to 8:30.
Yeah.
Finishing service at that stage.
Yeah.
And perhaps continuing for an hour.
Hour and a half, maybe maximum, and home.
Okay. And with the provision at some time of entertainment, and that would take the form of amplified music, but also unamplified music. Would that be right?
Yes.
Okay. You heard, didn't you, from the Vice Chair, Councillor Henton, asking whether you would be prepared to draw back the alcohol time. I believe it is to 10:30. If you were minded, or if you were agreeable to bringing that back, to what time would you be agreeable to bringing that back?
When food finishes, really, isn't it? Say 9 o'clock?
9, 10.
9, 10 o'clock.
All depends. If food finishes, people still need food at 9 o'clock. And then
Generally, if somebody finishes their meal, you have 1 or 2 drinks after, you know. So we aimed for 10 o'clock, I think, was that?
10 o'clock. I don't want to be there.
The thing is, we'd open from 8 in the morning.
Yes.
So, you know, we want to go home and ready for the next day.
Thank you. Thank you. As I say, it was an idea which was suggested. It may not be decided or acted upon. Equally, it wouldn't be wise to set yourself up for a fall and offer something that you've then exceeded and found yourself in difficulty.
Yeah.
Okay. There we are. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Mr. Balcock, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Sir, I remember you from the previous review.
We meet again.
There we are. So would it be right that anything other than a refusal would not sit well with you?
Not only myself. St. Albans Terrace and Talbot. It wouldn't sit well.
So that's the only question that I would have to you. And then coming to my environmental health colleagues, either Gareth or to Callum. I'll put these questions to you if I may. Would you accept that this is an application concerned with a licensing activity of selling alcohol on and off the premises?
Yes, we accept the licenses specifically in relation to that, but the granting of a license of any form has the issues with regards to the deregulation under the Live Music Act. I take the comments with regards to live music at workplaces, but I think we could agree that there are practical differences between a licensed venue having live music with regards to that exemption and a workplace such as an office having live music in the same vein. While they may apply to both, I think it's reasonable and practicable that a venue such as a bar or cafe would utilize that exemption under the Act to a different effect. And that's really the issue at hand with regards to what we anticipate happens at this premises.
Okay. Thank you. My next question to you would be, it is right, isn't it, that the exemption which is granted under the Live Music Act, as agreeable or disagreeable as it might be, would permit the activities that the applicants had in mind, and there wouldn't be an opportunity to introduce a condition there which would be enforceable?
Yes, that is correct. We wouldn't be able to enforce any license conditions in relation to regulated entertainment. The Live Music Act exemption would come into force regardless of the activity that is applied for with regards to the license. It's the issue we generally find with regards to this is the licensing guidance specifically requires a stepped approach to enforcement with regards to license conditions. This department from 2016 and 2021 at great cost to in terms of resourcing to the department, went through significant enforcement action in order to bring about a scenario in which the residents were not subject to the deregulation under the Live Music Act. By the surrender of the previous license and the application for the new license, this is circumvented for the same premises the conditions through that process, and in that we are left with no choice but to advocate for the refusal of licenses, with the exception of where the provisions of the previous license have been considered prior to the application. So in that way, it kind of, the Live Music Act sought to kind of deload the front end of the regulation from licensed premises so that issues in relation to regulated entertainment and live music could be dealt with, unnecessarily dealt with at the end where we come into it. And we've kind of gone through the whole process, and this has just kind of gone back straight to the start of it. So yes, I do take the, it is true specifically, and that is the reason for our objection.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lewis. I think in summarising what you have said, there is a position in respect to the Live Music Act where the activities which have been suggested would be permissible and not conditional or made the subject of a condition unless it was upon review. And I think the point that you were making there was that if that were to happen, then the hand in terms of your enforcement is slower than if the application were refused. Okay, thank you very much. Vice Chair, with your leave, one final question. And I'll ask this of all the people present. I'll go to the applicants first. If, and I'm not saying that this would happen because this is a decision that members would need to take, but if members were minded to grant a license, but to limit it for a period of 6 months or a year, how would you feel in respect of that.
No problem.
I agree to that.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, madam. Mr. Walcock, if that were the outcome of today, sir, I'm aware of your position, okay? But I'll ask you the question anyway. How would you feel towards that?
No, thank you. No license.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Environmental health colleagues.
We would have to object the idea on the basis that we would be in effect allowing, by not advocating on behalf of the well-being of the residents, for them to be subject to nuisance arising from a premises, which we still have statutory abatement notices in force on.
Yes, those abatement notices haven't been served upon the applicants. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, but there is they are still in force, as there is some degree of responsibility under that piece of legislation to the owner, Mr. Christopher Trainer, depending on his involvement, as he has been involved with every other license granted in some capacity.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Sorry, can I just add that we haven't got a problem with licence being reviewed, but who would be liable to pick up the cost of us going through the process again then?
I think I can answer that. It would be with yourselves.
Then we would have a problem.
Right. Okay.
Purely only because of that.
There is another problem, is that what brewery is going to put all the new pipes in and things like that for a 6 months trial period? So I'm going to be really sort of stuck for that.
There's a lot of cost for us.
Yeah, it's been a lot costly at the moment, as you could appreciate. I've done everything I could possibly do. I paid for fire extinguishers to be put in. There was none there. I put an alarm system in there. There was none there. I put in for CCTV cameras throughout the building and outside for the police to review. As I said, they've been there a few times themselves.
Okay.
My best.
All right. But a very honest answer, I think, from everyone. Vice Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Before we move on to the summaries, can I just check that whether there's Councillor Thomas, please.
Sorry, thank you. It was to come back on something that that Environmental Health said just now, and they were saying that these abatement notices are still in force. Can we have a bit of clarity? So Mr. Trainer is the owner of the building. Does he have any involvement? Like, if I leased a building, that would be my, like, while I might not be responsible for the bricks and mortar, I'm responsible for what's going on within that building while it's, leased to me. Is that not the case? Could we have a bit of clarity on that?
The business isn't registered to Mr. Trainer. Mr. Trainer is the owner of the building, and we've got a contract with our solicitors that we pay rent to Mr. Trainer every month. He's nothing to do whatsoever with the business.
Right, and I think you said as well he's barred from entering the,
yes,
like being a customer then. Right,
yeah, he's not allowed in there.
And he has no involvement behind the scenes with the running of the business or anything like that.
None whatsoever.
And Neil or Mike, could you clarify as well, like if for some reason the current tenants were to be issued this license and then they were to cease to be tenants, Mr. Trainer wouldn't then be able to take advantage of that license, would he?
No, madam.
Thank you.
Perhaps
Thank you.
Perhaps I can come in there. There are provisions within the Licence Act 2003 which would allow the transfer of a licence from Mr. Lewis to Mr. Trainer. So if, for example, the lease agreement came to an end or the licence was surrendered, the licence can be reinstated, and it can be reinstated within 28 days by any person who has the right to occupy the premises. So yes, Mr. Trainer could take advantage of the license, but after an application has been made to the local authority.
So again, my first time here, sorry. But when I go walk into a pub, they always have that little like brass plaque above the door that says the license holder is, and it has a name on it, right? A nod for me. And what I'm wondering is, like, obviously, if we issue this license to Mr. Lewis and Mr. Lewis is no longer involved at the property anymore, then the license would have to be amended to someone else's name, wouldn't it? Which means it would have to come back to committee, or at least to yourself, Neil, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so the process of a transfer isn't the same as going through a new application. A transfer is it's a payment of £23. There's an application form, and unless the police object on crime and disorder grounds within 14 days of the individual that's taken over, then that is granted. Rarely does a transfer come before members.
Right, but I would imagine, given the comments by the police on this application, and indeed environmental health's input as well, if we were to receive an application to transfer the license, we would spot that there's a bit of an issue here, wouldn't we? Or is it, if not, is it possible to put like a flag on it so that wouldn't happen automatically?
Yeah, no, the application only goes to the police. So the police would look at the individual who's asking to transfer the license, and they would establish whether that person is suitable to hold the license. And that's
Right.
it. If they deem that
Right.
he's suitable to hold the license, regardless of the premises and the public nuisance elements that could be caused, it's whether the individual is suitable to hold the license. If the police don't object, then that is automatically granted.
I would think, though, from the letter that the police that was attached to this document, I'd think they would object if Mr. Trainer was to ask to transfer it to him, wouldn't they? Given, I mean, they've been quite strict on this application, haven't they? Like, I would assume that they don't normally ask for all of the additional requirements that they have.
The police would have to. I mean, I can't speak
Okay,
for the
okay,
police,
all
unfortunately.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Does anyone else have any last questions?
It's probably just worth me noting. So there was a tiny bit of confusion in the answer. So Christopher Trainer is the sole director of the Surge Pub Limited. The Surge Pub Limited owns the building, and then I have not seen an agreement between the applicants and Mr. Trainer, but I would assume they either hold the building under long-term lease, as the other applicants did. The issue that we had in relation to that was Christopher Trainer was still involved in one capacity or another, and still holds the ultimate control of the building through the enforcement of the lease agreement, which is what my colleague Gareth was referencing with regards to acoustic mitigation, necessary changes to the building that are required, things of that nature.
I think to summarise it, Mr. Trainer could have the ultimate say with all good intentions from the applicants to improve the sound insulation. He could easily turn around and say no. I think that's the bottom line of it.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any last questions? No. There will now be an opportunity for relevant parties to make a closing statement. The closing statement must not introduce any new information, nor will there be any further opportunities for questions. If I could proceed in the following order: environmental health.
So I'll just briefly reread the summary from my prepared statement. So in summary, the Surge has a turbulent history demonstrating that every previous licence holder since 2015 has repeatedly caused statutory noise nuisance. This department has deemed the premises unsuitable for amplified music and live entertainment, and no evidence to the contrary has been presented. Mr. Christopher Trainer, Director of the Surge Pub Limited, has maintained ultimate control of the premises throughout this period through enforcement of the lease agreement. Following the 2021 licence review, significant restrictions were added to the previous premises licence. These included the repeal of the Live Music Act exemption, the completion of a noise impact assessment by an Institute of Acoustics accredited professional, and consultation with a local authority. The provisions within the licensing application form submitted and the email exchange with the applicant are not sufficient to offset the concerns surrounding noise nuisance. It's probably also worth noting that what we've heard here today have while we can see the applicants who have are well-intentioned, have not been sufficient to offset our concerns regarding nuisance arising from the premises. And so in summary, we have to recommend the members reject the application. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now move on to Mr. Wilcock. Do you have a closing statement, please?
Thank you, Chair. I need to repeat what I said at the end of my last statement. Talbot, as a community and as a resident of Talbot, we've had a guts full of public houses in our vicinity, causing us no end of trouble in the past. Nothing at the moment with this, with the Sumside Arms and the Bell. We still got the problem, and by the looks of things, we want to add another one to it. But the people and the residents of Talbot have had enough, and it's been going on for too long. And I don't think anybody is taking our considerations into context. We seem to be just ignored for the sake of another pub. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcock. I'll now move on to the applicant, please.
You, me. While I appreciate everything that's been said today, we are trying to run a successful business. Do take everybody's viewpoints into account. I'm willing to work with members of the community rather than against. As I've said previously, we're a food restaurant which just wants to introduce alcohol for people to have with their meals, not intending on doing any live bands or throwing out any loud music and upsetting people. And that is purely what it's all about. And we haven't done a noise impact regarding environmental health, because our intentions is not to play loud music. And we didn't feel that we're going to benefit from that anyway. But if we have to put measures in place, we'll do that too. As I said, we're willing to work with everybody rather than against. Thank you.
Thank you. The committee will now retire for deliberations, and thank you all for attending. You'll be notified of the outcome in due course. So I am just as bad with the mics today. Sarah, can you please confirm all the interested parties have now left the meeting and the recording has stopped?